Hi, and welcome to another episode of the What's Running You podcast. In the book, I talk about one of the main metaphors I use is being the entrepreneur of your life versus the employee of your life. And I think with that comes something that I'm a little bit nerdy about. So if you're nerdy about this as well, you may not be, but if you are, this is for you. So I think with entrepreneurs, you have to have certain systems in place to run. So I'm super fascinated. I don't think I've ever told anybody this. I'm super fascinated with like how people kind of run their lives and like how they run their calendar and their task and how the systems they have to get their work done and kind of function and get the most out of their life. So, in the book I talk about kind of my workout prep, which has been super helpful and just awesome for me. So within that, I work out and then I pray, and then I do this thing called my prep, which I just kind of go through, and I keep everything digitally, but I do like the written stuff. So I'll write out a list of just the task and the appointments and basically the results I want to see. And, I try to put fun stuff on there. I try to keep pretty short. So it's not like just this thing that I dread doing, but kind of that I want to get through. And then I also, I put my big three, the three most important things, and number those and try to work on those first, that kind of thing. So that's part of the system. But something else I do as part of my prep is each week I do a weekly prep. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today because it's awesome, to be honest. And a lot of people do kind of I call it my weekly preview. And a lot of people do that on Sundays. I like to keep Sundays pretty free of stuff to do and kind of family time and all that stuff. So I try to carve out the time Monday morning. Sometimes, depending on the schedule, I may end up doing it another day, but ideally I try to do it Monday morning, and because it just sets up my week. So basically, what I do on my weekly preview, and there's one thing I think that I love that I added, a little while ago, and that I think it's worth it to listen to this just for that tip, I will say. So what does my weekly preview entail? And if the month's starting, I'll actually say it's a monthly preview of the quarter, it's quarterly preview, but it's always Monday, the start of the week, no matter what it is. And then I do a yearly one. But the quarterly, the monthly, and the weekly are all the same except for one aspect. So what do I do in my weekly preview? So the first thing I do is I read through what I call my What's Running You adventure map, my adventure, and kind of the map. I've talked about that. The last part of the book is kind of, that's what this is. So this is what I read through once a week, and I just read through my board of directors, who's my chairman, my other board members, and I've got my dad, my granddaddy, they're my members emeritus, and then I've got my other ones, and kind of if they're in a certain category for me, I have that to the side. I read through my inspirations list, which, if you haven't read the book, there's basically board of directors. And then I also have something that I just have like as inspiration, which are people I don't know. Where my board of directors I kind of know in general. I mean, you could have a digital one, but, or somebody you're buying a course from that's helping you through this. But in general, I kind of know my board of directors and my inspirations. I don't. It actually started out as a list of just like fictional characters I love. And then I added, certain actors or whatever. Speakers, just people who kind of inspire me. Like my number one character on here, Gus McCrae, Lonesome Dove, love him. He's on here. So I just kind of read through that list. Then I go through I've got my values down, my mission, my culture. And then I have a little thing for brand. I say in the book, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I did kind of have a little sentence about that. Then I get to my vision. So I've basically gone through my values, mission, culture, brand, and then I'm on my vision, which I do kind of like a mind map. I mean, in the book, I talk about different ways I get to that. I do the rocking chair test and make a list, but then to kind of mentally get there, I kind of break it down in like a mind map thing. So I have this all in my notes. I just throw it in my notes app. So I look through that, and then I have some pictures, what I guess people call it vision board, dream board. In the book, I'll say it's like, because we use a lot of story. Obviously, just went through the hero's journey. So this is like your storyboard where you're kind of mapping out and you're trying to get a visual, component to this. So I have some pictures and stuff I look at. Then I go through I've got my 10-year goals, just a list, and then my 5-year goals, my 1-year goals. And then typically I'll read through those. And then the ones I'm working for this quarter that I've kind of taken through that hero's journey that we talked about, I'll read those. Typically, I'll go through and read those more because the other ones are just like a little line, but this one I'll kind of read the pieces out that I'm working on. So I do that. That's the first thing I do is just read through my What's Running You kind of map. And then, all right, this is cool. Okay, so next I do my weekly magical moments and wins list. I think I got the magical moments thing from Tony Robbins because I was talking to a buddy of mine who does a yearly, like I think it was part of Tony Robbins' year thing. They'll go through and like look back at the year and do the magical moments. And I was like, well, I'll add that to my weekly preview. So, and I do my wins there. So I'll kind of look through the previous week's calendar, kind of look and see like, did something great happen with the kids? Did I finish a project or finish a thing? You know, and I go through and kind of write those things down. And then I also, and this is the best, you know, during the summer I was going through, my pictures, I haven't looked at my pictures forever and there's just 80 million. So I was trying to kind of organize them. And then I thought about adding that here. So I actually go through and look at the last week's pictures and photos. And I'll tell you, that's been awesome because it just reminds you of like all the little things that like happen and fun moments. And, you know, it really reminds you of those, of kind of like the good times you had during the week. And then it also lets you delete a bunch of photos that, you know, you might have taken a picture of something and send it to somebody or a list of something that you don't need. So it also helps me clear that out, which is very satisfying. So I do that. And then if something I need to send to files, I'll put it on my desktop. But so I kind of clear through that. And then I also look at something that, you know, I have like a list of like quotes or something like, you know, if I hear something good spiritually or quote, I'll put that in a notes thing as well. So I might look over, and there might be one or two of those, but I might look over those for the week and just kind of remind me of that. Then I look at a big 3 board and like, what do I need to improve on, update with new results? And that's actually behind that calendar. There's a board where I have like my quarterly goals and then I break them down the months and then the week. So in the week, I'll just update like the bottom row, like the things, the big 3 I'm working on that week. If it's the month, I'll update that. And then if it's quarter, I'll update the whole thing. So that's the only part that really changes between quarterly, monthly, and weekly is kind of like what I put on that board. And that way I know like what I'm working on that for that quarter, what I'm working on that month, the big 3 I'm working on for that month, and then the big 3 I'm working on that week. So that just kind of, you know, I'm trying to take these things I put through the hero's journey and kind of make them very actionable and just kind of simple. And then obviously the ones a week kind of become my ones in my list. So that's what I do there. I go through my reminders and update, make sure that all that's good. I use the reminders app in this thing. Then go through my calendar for the week, see if there's anything I need to add on that. And then I'll also like take the big 3 in my week and I'll make sure I have a place for them in my calendar. Like I'll try to block time out to make sure I'm doing a place for them. So, and then actually at that point, then I create my today list for that day because I'm kind of in my calendar in my list. So I do that, 2 more steps. And it seems like a lot, but once you've kind of done it, it's not that big. And then I go through, and these last 2 I love, and they're just simple. You know, I don't know. They work for me like everything in the book. If this is helpful, great. If not, you know, don't worry about it. Then I go through my computer desktop and clear through anything and like organize that. Cause like if I've added stuff from my photos to my desktop because I needed a file, I'll organize that. And then I go through my emails and try to get my emails to 0. And then I basically do the same thing with my desk. Like I'll go through my desk, organize that. I have a file folder over there that I just throw stuff in, my mail and everything. So I'll go through that, organize that. So I'll go through that desktop, that mail, and then I actually go clear through my bag and folders and stuff and make sure I have the stuff in there that in my bag that's for my big 3. And, you know, and that's pretty much the system. And it takes probably about an hour depending on how crazy your desk. But if you're doing it every week, you know, your desktop doesn't get that crazy and your desk doesn't get that crazy. So maybe difficult the first time, but then it's kind of a system that just helps me, you know, and then yearly is kind of a bigger one where I get my yearly goals. And I heard something from Jesse Itzer, who talked about, and I'd done some of these things at the beginning of the year, but he was talking about entering the year light and how he goes through files all of his papers. That's kind of when I do the big filing as well, and goes through his clothes and cleans out his car. He likes to enter the year light. And so I kind of was very conscious of that going into this year, is kind of do all those things. And I feel like that's what this does for me, is it lets me enter the week light. And that's a big thing in the book, is like being light. I'm kind of a weird combination, and I talk about this in the book, about like being carefree. Like I'm carefree, but I'm also like an anxious person. I can get really anxious. So this helps me remove some of the anxiety, just clarify, go in the week light, knowing what I need to do. It's simple. I like simple things. And then I think a little bit of discipline in some things really frees things up. I do it in the morning, each morning, my regular one, but this one for the week just really frees me up. I know what I need to do that week. I know what the priorities are, and then I'm set. So I love it. I always feel good afterwards. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. I would love to know anything y'all do. I would love those tips, because I dig this. I don't know why, but I'm interested in the way people run their lives and run their businesses, and how that helps them function and helps them live more fully, and like I said, more light. So that's the weekly preview. So I hope that's helpful, and yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate you.